can a wildlife officer in Texas conduct an inspection on a campground for evidence of hunting, fishing, and so forth? All right, guys, my name is Anthony Bandiero, bringing you to the Roadside Chat. This question obviously comes from an officer in California working for DFW, Department of Fish and Wildlife. Basically, the officer says, look, as a game warden, we often conduct camp checks in both designated and dispersed campsites during the hunting season, right? So dispersed, meaning not at these designated campgrounds, right? In the middle of nowhere, I guess. My question is, does a person have an expectation of privacy outside their sleeping quarters, tent, travel trailer, etc., while camping in a dispersed area on public land? The officer reminds us that currently California law gives them authority to do these inspections under Section 1006, and it allows for certain inspections of certain items which may contain fish or wildlife. Often the officer says he comes across these dispersed campsites during the general hunting seasons, and sometimes these areas are unoccupied, right? Is there an expectation of privacy inside their camp but outside their sleeping area? Is there an issue entering the campsite and conducting an initial visual inspection of the camp? Additionally, what if there's evidence of hunting, gun cases, hunting equipment, maybe a little bit of blood, hair, etc., that's found in a campsite? Do you see any issue in the inspection of containers or coolers which may hold fish or game while the occupants are in the field? This search would be limited to those described in Section 1006. Okay, so 1006 basically says the department, right, DFW, may inspect the following: all boats, markets, stores, and other buildings except dwellings, and all receptacles except the clothing actually worn by the person at the time of the inspection, where birds, mammals, fish, reptiles, and amphibia may be stored, placed, or held for sale or storage. Okay, so I think that the law is fairly clear here. Now, first of all, I do want to so a person always has a reasonable expectation of privacy, in their cooler, in their, of course, their clothing, in their vehicle, in their buildings, right? Even if it's not a dwelling. So I think it's more accurate to say, does the authority, establish that there's a reduced expectation of privacy to the degree where the officer can conduct a warrantless inspection? And so with the facts here, I think the answer is yes, right? The officer made mention also in this that there's nothing that says you have to be present to do these inspections. I agree. I think if the officer came upon a dispersed campground and found a cooler, and there was, evidence that the person was engaged in hunting and so forth, I think you need that, by the way. It's like I go camping all the time, but I don't hunt and I don't fish, right? And allegedly, I am missing out on a lot of fun. But regardless of that, an officer certainly could not just come into my campground and start opening up my coolers just to make sure I'm at hunting. Absolutely not. No way whatsoever. You would actually have to have first a reason to believe that I'm actually engaged in those activities first. Fishing poles, hunting rifles. I tell you that I'm hunting. I'm dressed in all camouflage with an orange vest. Things like that would probably be enough to do this inspection. But then the thing is, if I am engaged in those activities, can the officer, open up my cooler and so forth? I think the answer is yes, right? And you don't have to be there physically. I've never read any case law that says that the person has to be present during its inspection. And I got to tell you, if that was the case, then the wildlife officer's authority is going to be greatly diminished, because what's the alternative, right? We have to wait for these campers to come back to their campsite when there's only like one officer in the whole region. And let's say you have several hunters that are out and about, doing their thing, and the officer just wants to make sure that everything's on the up and up. I think that's the way the law was written. I think that's the intent. But we also know that you can't go into that person's tent, right? The tent would be a dwelling under the Fourth Amendment, and this law specifically excludes dwellings. So you have to be careful with that. So even if you saw the cooler inside the tent, I do not believe you have the authority to enter that tent to inspect the cooler. You would need some form of exigency or some other recognized exception to do that. I hope this helps. Keep the questions coming. Until next time, my friends, stay safe, and also hit like, subscribe, and share with your friends.